Hey guys, it's Mario with Beyond Fitness, and I've gotten a few questions today asking me to discuss a mini cut, how you should use it, my general recommendations, where you should go about with this, kind of as a new part of our coaching series. So to kind of jump into it, I want to say forth, just again, this is kind of like a disclaimer. I'm not trying to bash anybody. However, I love the questions, like the general questions in which we can answer and then, hopefully are more applicable to a larger audience as opposed to one individual question where it's like, hey man, I live in like the UK, I weigh 20 stone, right now I live 3 days a week, my current split, and then they'll detail their entire training split, and it's just like 5 messages, and it's like, I'm not. First off, it kind of defeats the purpose of our coaching, services, if we're only answering specific questions and we're never helping out, a larger group of individuals as opposed to just one person in specific. So hopefully, if you guys ask a question, please don't private message me with a long summary of what you've been doing and then how do I go from here? And it's like, I'll answer the general question, but I won't go in so far as to depth of being so specific, because then that's unfair to my paying clients who've paid for those services. So, and I mean, I'm not trying to be a douche. If you ask any coach that, they'll lightly brush you off to the side. I am being 100% serious. So at least I'm just kind of letting you guys know. So to jump into mini cuts, what are mini cuts? And I have a few little general recommendations here. Mini cuts are a bridge between a gaining phase. Meaning, if you're in a lean gaining phase, you're doing great, but you realize that you're putting on a little bit too much fat, you've probably had too many nights out where you just, let's say, disregarded shit, for a better lack of word. And you've put on a little bit too much fat. So mini cuts help at least allow you to drop some of the unwanted fat that you may have accumulated during your gaining phase, and then allow you to jump back into bulking. And also, it depends on the health of your metabolism. Seriously, read number 2, because that's going to be one of the biggest ones. Meaning, if you've been crash dieting, you've been following this Jamie Eason, 12 weeks to success, and it's 500 calorie type bullshit diets, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to be in a, I like to call it, a healthy state in which you can now diet from and actually lose weight successfully. So if you've been dieting at 1,000 calories and now you're going to place yourself in a relatively steep deficit, you're only going to shoot yourself in the foot. So again, if you've been properly, tracking your intake, and let's say you're now at a healthy point and you say, yeah, I could definitely pull off a mini cut with success, then this would be fine for you. And the goal is to drop as much fat as desired within whatever time frame. So this, again, I should have clarified in this. This does not mean that you have to lose as much weight as you can in 4 weeks. This means that if you lose as much weight as you want, let's say by week 2, even beginning of week 3, however much weight you lose and you're happy, go back to bulking. You're not required to stay within the 4 to 6 weeks that I suggest. So again, I should have written that on the board, but heed my words. No longer than 6 weeks. That's my cutoff line. I don't care if you've only lost a few pounds. Sorry, no thanks. We're going straight back to your gaining phase. And that if you didn't lose much, we also assume that the health of your metabolism wasn't where it should have been. And a general recommendation for starting calories, again, depends entirely on number 2. However, my general recommendations are 9.25 to 11.5 times your body weight as starting calories. And I like my folks to go a bit higher, but then likewise, sometimes the last maybe week or so of a mini cut, I'll tell my folks, hey, if you'd like, we can drop your calories just a bit slighter. Just be more aggressive, because if you're trying to go for a mini cut, you're trying to lose as much fat. You're not trying to babysit your metabolism. So go ahead, be aggressive. And then my starting recommendations for macronutrient-wise would be 0.25 to 1/3 of a gram of fat times your body weight, 1 gram to 1.25 times your in protein, 1 gram to 1.25 in body weight for your protein intake, and then the carbs would just be the remainder of whatever you had originally set your calorie intake at. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a case example of a mini cut of someone who successfully does it. But again, like I said, just these are just starting recommendations. It's entirely dependent, so please, don't just I hope I can answer as much as I can within this one video and like not have to, bring, resurrect the topic once again. So here we go. I'm going to give you guys an example of Dave, who probably put on a little bit too much fat. He asked to mini cut. Here we go. Alright guys, so here I have our case study of Dave. Let's say that he started at a body weight of 160 pounds. Other factors as well, but however, I'm not taking into consideration this. This is just a general video, and for the purposes of this is just fine. So Dave is at a body weight of 160, and we've decided his bulking macros to be about 170 to 180 grams of protein, 85 grams of fat, 430 grams of carbs. These are just the beginning, initial macros we decided to go ahead and give him start off with. And let's come back about 5 months later at the bottom right there, and we notice that Dave has put on 20 pounds. He's probably put on more than what we'd like to see and expect from him. However, we've increased his macros from 185 to 195 protein, 100 grams of fat, and 560 grams of carbs. But he does not like this right now. He needs to lose, or at least drop some of the bloat that he may have put on, or unwanted bloat. So now let's give general recommendations, based on what I would have done in this situation, and see where he ends up in the future. Let's say 5 weeks from now. Alright guys, so based off of my general recommendations, we have Dave, and he started at a body weight of 178 pounds. So this is the kind of like initial begin mini cut phase. So for this, what we had done was we had taken his original protein intake, and that's what I like to do with my athletes and my folks. Typically just say, hey, your protein intake is relatively fine where it is. Let's just maintain that. And likewise, we just multiplied 180 times 11. Like I said, I usually like to be on the higher end of the calorie intake. So we started off with that, and we came out to about 1980. So those are the total calories we'll be using for our mini cut. So again, likewise, all we had to do at this point was just manipulate his fat and protein intake. So, his carb intake, my bad. So for his fat, we had done 180 times 0.3, which gave us about, I believe, 54 something, so I just rounded it to 55. And then whatever remainder calories were left, once he did the math, came out to 180 grams of carbs. And that was our general diet. These are his initial starting macros. So now let's fast forward 5 weeks into the future, which is right beneath us. And we realize that Dave is now at a body weight of 166.4. His end macros were 100, same protein. He dropped his fat 5 grams and he dropped his carbs 15. We could assume he did that in the 4th week just to, kind of push forth with fat loss, get it out of the way. Tired, just want to, maybe lose an extra 2 pounds and then right back to bulking. So now I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to show you guys how to transition now back to a lean gaining phase, which I know I covered in another video, but this needs to be said again. And here we go. Alright guys, here we have the final installment of how we're going to transition to a bulk. So we see that Dave ended his mini cut at a body weight of 166 pounds. And his ending mini cut macros were 185 to 195 grams of protein, 50 grams of fat, and 165 grams of carbs. Like I said, if you guys know my stance on this, if you're going to aggressively go into a mini cut phase, you might as well aggressively shoot out of a mini cut phase, get right back to bulking, don't waste your time. You're not babysitting your fucking metabolism. Sorry for swearing, but it's like one of these things that's like, it needs to be said repeatedly over and over, because some people still, ask me, well, how do you go back into a bulk? And it's like, I don't have a set formula. You just try to bring calories very close to what they were, but of course, drop the calories some, because you're not at that same body weight, and you kind of want to take into account, hey, I've been dieting, I've lost 12 pounds, I'm clearly not going to respond to that same intake. However, I might as well play my cards safe and just bring it back ever so close within those ranges, so within the following weeks, I'm able to increase it. and be at a lighter body weight. Exactly. So we see right here his top, and let's just transition straight to his bulk. Imagine literally the next day he says, hey, it's time to bulk again. So we left his protein intake the same because, again, his body weight of 166, while granted, yeah, we could drop protein, 10 grams, it's not so relevant in that it's going to make a huge shift in terms of body composition. It's not going to make a jack shit difference. So play it safe, have his protein just a bit relatively higher up there, and in the future, as you can see, his calories, he's in the 500 gram carb club. So down the road, we definitely start bumping his fats up to that point where he's like at 100 grams of fat, 600 grams of carbs, and he's going to be very well off. So let's look at his transition macros. He's at 80 grams of fat because previously he was at about 100. So we're going to drop them just about 15 to 20 grams or so. And even still, 80 grams of fat is a good amount. And he's 166 pounds, 500 grams of carbs. And again, there's going to be slight water fluctuations. This is to be expected. He's probably going to shoot up in weight the next day, 2 pounds. May read the same skill reading again the next day, but he will eventually be at that baseline where he's now about 166 to 167 and a half pounds. You know, put my hand there, fluctuating more so. But the awesome news is that he's in a way better position to increase his calories because look at where we've gotten his calorie intake to now. So again, it's one of these little procedures I like to use with my folks. If they say, hey man, I think I want to lose a few pounds really quick. I've been doing great in the off season. Calorie intake got up to this level. Let's clean this shit up. Great. Or some people sometimes just like to use this as a procedure to increase their calorie intake. They may not even need to cut, but they'll do this just so they say, hey, I'm looking at this down the road. I want to increase my calories as high as they can be. So I say, you know what? I'm all for it as well. Let's do it. And again, this is me, Mario. I've coach at Beyond Fitness, and if you guys have any sort of questions, please post them in the Beyond Fitness group. I'll actually post a link down below to that if you guys are interested in joining. Like I said, I'm gonna get in the camera for this. Top 3 questions of the month, or excuse me, of the week. If you guys can get 500 members, I'll answer the top 3 questions. And those could either be like personal questions, like pertaining to your situation individual-wise, or whatever you have. So shoot them, email, whatever. All right, peace.